I am sure every single one of us have been on the receiving end of other people's crappy behaviors towards us. And that can come in two ways. Sometimes just a once off, or sometimes a pattern of behavior that we cannot believe is continuing. Hi, I'm Frida Willis, your Thera coach. You will find that these nuggets of wisdom is aimed at helping you understand and adjust your behavior accordingly so that you can be at peace, stay safe, and grow in awareness about these kind of things. Please let me know if there's any other topics you'd like me to cover, and I would more than happily put something together for you that could help you grow, reach a higher level of understanding about humanity, and also to grow your relationships, to help you feel less anxious, to keep yourself in a state of calm, understanding, and health, because we do not want to be in abusive relationships and we do not want to be hurting all day long. And least of all, we do not want to give people the power with their bad behavior to ruin one whole day of our very precious lives. So enjoy the video, like, click, share, subscribe, ring the bell, give it to your friends. It really will help other people become aware of the support and knowledge that is available to them. So thank you very much for watching this video with me, and enjoy and learn. Human beings are creatures of habit, and I'm sure if we look around us, all of you will agree that there's a heck of a lot of hurt people busy hurting people. And I've so many times heard people say, but why does it happen to me? Well, I'll allude a little bit later on to more of why does it happen to you. But let's just summarize as to why hurt happens. We live in a world that can be chaotic, unfamiliar, unpredictable, and difficult to understand. The way we look at life and the filters or paradigms through which we look at life can be positive, negative, good for us, toxic for us, damaging for our mind and heart. So it's the way we look at life that affects how we see things. And remember, there's only perception, no reality. So they often also say, there's your side, my side, and the truth. So it is important to remember that there's a lot of people on the planet that is living with trauma that is still stuck in their body mind, still stuck in their nervous system, and still stuck in their thinking and therefore also their behavior. And sometimes these behaviors and beliefs are caused by trauma, religious beliefs, patterns of thought, examples of parents or other caregivers, and may or may not be good for us. And I think I must also add, there's a whole lot of so-called influencers on Instagram and on the internet in general that young people follow that is not always healthy for their body, mind, and their spirit. So when we look at ourselves and the people very close to us, there's a lot of behaviors that people carry with them that may not even be relevant anymore. In other words, it is something that was done to them when they were little, when they were tiny children, and they just grew up and normalized it in order to survive. When we actually get to stop somebody like that and help them to think and to expand their awareness, it's often easy for them to drop that behavior and replace it with something far more healthy. So keep in mind that a lot of what is happening to you, and also from your side perhaps, is because of previous experiences. So it is something that we can change, it is something that we can reframe, and it's also something that we can practice. We can drop old patterns and replace it with new ones. So all is indeed not lost. Most people ask, what must I do? And that's a very wise question to ask. And I want to remind you that between the event and your understanding and then your decision to choose what to do, there's a little space. And that space is incredibly important, because that affords us a moment to really think what's going on here. We have been conditioned, and we see that on TV all the time, watching soapies, watching documentaries, watching people's behavior. We have been trained to instinctively immediately react and retaliate. But that's not always the best way, because that inflames the situation. It offers nobody any healing opportunity. So let's look at what those options are, but also let's just quickly go through what people ask me. First is, what are our options? Second, do we retaliate and do the same they do? Do we do tit for tat? Do we play that childish game? Are we that petty? Should we be that petty? Do we try to discuss the matter, or do we walk away? Do we ignore the matter, or do we own it? Do we deny the matter? Do we cut people off? I know there's a big movement towards just ghosting and grey rocking people. And yes, there are a place for very healthy cutting of ties and walking away from relationships that's really, really toxic. But we also have to be careful to label things as toxic where we play a part in it. But more about that later. What do we do? Do we just carry the suffering and the pain on the inside and keep wondering forever what's wrong with us, and at the same time undermining our own self-worth and our own self-esteem? Do we keep pondering why they hurt us and why they want to destroy us? Well, there's a whole lot of options available to us. But the thing I want to establish first and foremost, because we need it, that's our first step, is to remember between the event, between the behavior and your understanding of it, there's that minute of pause that can happen, that moment in your mind where you say, whoa, wait, let me just think about this. Is it really about me? Is it not perhaps something else that's going on the inside of that person? And I specifically refer to people who have patterns of behavior that constantly exhibit the same kind of thing. We can talk about being ignored, or the silent treatment, or a type of punishment through avoiding you. There's so many things. And, at the same time that I even say the word punishment, it is not really intended as such. I will explain more later. So what are we to do? We'll get into some answers. But you need to first remember that between your event and your reaction, there's a pause. And we're going to need that pause a whole lot more in our lives going forward. If we want to grow, if we want to understand what's really happening, and if we want to take away the pain, damn it, that's what we want. Let's move on. What we often forget is that we actually all live not in the outside world, but in the inside. I call it your inner landscape, or your inner world, or your inner space, but that's actually where we live. That's our thought space, our mind space, our feeling space, our heart space, and through that space we handle the outer world. So keep in mind that, for example, how we manage stress or anxiety or people's behavior is a symptom of the situation or the event. But what is underneath that is how we view the world, how we view our life. And that we can change. And when we do, we get to the root of the problem, we resolve our issues, and we can change the way we look at the world. And that changes everything on the inside for us. So I think Mr. Einstein had a good summary of it in that slide. Let me remind you of this as well. You have freedom of choice. So remember, you don't have to do any of the things that we talking about in this presentation. You choose your actions. You are not at the mercy of other people. You are at the mercy of your decisions. So that is why it's important to look at that inner world and to see what filters you are using to view the world and the people around you. However, you can choose to also not act, and that's a powerful thing. Learning what to do and when to do what takes practice, calm, and a good dollop of wisdom. Also knowing who you are dealing with, that plays a role. But over time, you will refine your skill. It becomes a craft, an art form. You will make mistakes, and you will think about it, and you will learn from it, and that is perfectly okay. Please just don't stubbornly keep doing what you've been doing and get frustrated about the same result every time you get hurt. Sometimes we try too hard. We do so much for people, and our hope is often that by doing things for them that they will be doing that or similar or more from their side for us. The harsh reality is that this very, very seldom happens. You cannot change people. You cannot force somebody to be good to you by being good to them. It sounds awfully much like manipulation to me. You can, however, try to understand them. And what I mean about that is, and that I will feature in the very next video I make, is that there's behavior behind what you are seeing that is causing the behavior that you are seeing. So it's never really just about you. That person comes to you with his whole life present in his mind, and through 100,000,000 filters and perceptions and paradigms and ways of looking and points of view, they act in a certain way. So it's really important that you must understand their behavior is truly not about you. You do not know their whole life story, and so, therefore, you do not know why they do what they do. It is every individual person on the planet, or almost 8 billion of us' job, to make sure that we do our own healing so that we do not filter everything that happens around us through our own wounding. And also, by healing, we help the next generation, and boy, do we need it badly, and do they need it badly. It's also very important to keep another factor in mind, is that most of what happens is feeling driven. We are either moving towards something or away from something, but underneath all that, there's a need. And if people will just slow down enough to notice that the other person is asking, can you please fulfill this need for me? That's what they're saying. There's a need. When we do that, when we don't just think about why are you ignoring me or why are you treating me this way, you must understand there's a need behind everything. And all those needs don't circle around you. They do feel that way, and that's hence why I'm making this video. But it is important to understand there's a whole world between what you think you see and what the other person sees. Okay, so with every single slide, we're getting closer and closer to the crunch of the matter. And let me share this quote with you. History doesn't repeat itself. Insecurity, denial, and sadly sometimes stupidity do. It is the things that we fear, the situations we refuse to acknowledge, in other words, our own resistance and stubbornness, and the dumb behaviors we perpetuate, that meaning that those ones that we haven't questioned, within ourselves and others that cause the same nonsense to happen over and over. And I'm working with a couple of youngsters at this point, and the thing I see that scares me most is their absolute defiant resistance to change. They refuse. Feet stuck in, heels tucked in, not moving, not budging, and therefore no growth. Nobody can come close. Nobody can help them heal. If you go to the trouble to read the book, The Four Agreements, you will see in chapter 3, they very beautifully describe the fact that each human being is living in his or her own little bubble, his own little world. And the world that that person lives in is not the world that you live in. We make a very big mental error by assuming that that person is living in your exact world. They touch, but that's about all. We need to understand that when we are dealing with a person who shows us repeat, let's say, rejection, or repeat, let's think of another example, who refuses to open up. Those are all mirrors. They are showing us something very powerful in ourselves. Unfortunately, I had to work with a lot of women, and it was mostly women. There was exactly one man in this specific grouping of people who was all in a relationship and have left a relationship with a narcissist. Every single one of them had to learn that the narcissist was their biggest teacher. The mirror that the narcissist holds up for you is that you matter, that you need to count yourself, that you must up your sense of self-value, that you must grow your self-worth. Their absolute narcissistic self-adoration is the mirror, is the message, is the key to your healing. And that's but one example. So if you have questions for me about what somebody's behavior can be a mirror to you, please feel free to ask me in the comments, or you're welcome to contact me. My details are at the end of each presentation. So feel free to ask, because there are unique things that people mirror to us. Avoidance can mean, what am I avoiding in myself? What part of me am I not looking at? If we're talking about somebody just worried about monetary gain, where do I not value my own self, my own financial capabilities, my own abundance? That's just a couple of examples. Feel free to contact me and ask questions. I'd be so happy to assist. I've taken the liberty of taking the main points from the Four Agreements, specific one chapter, It's Not All About You, and summarizing it here for you. But I really do recommend you read the book. Nothing other people do is because of you. It is because of themselves. All people live in their own dream, in their own mind. They are in a completely different world from the one we live in. When we take something personally, we assume that they know what's in our world, and we try to impose our world on their world. Even when a situation seems so personal, even if another insults you directly, it has nothing to do with you. What they say, what they do, and the opinions they give are according to the agreements that they have in their own minds. Their point of view comes from all the programming they received during their upbringing, which goes to say the same for us. The way we see things, the filter through which we look, the wind through which we look. For example, abandonment issues. For example, a child that was left alone from a very young age who has such severe independence becomes an adult that is totally unwilling, unyielding, not at all open for receiving love, because it's a foreign concept to them. You may also have a child that was so smothered or controlled by the mother that when the child grows up, the person can hardly think for themselves. So those are factors then that would in turn impact on their relationships with the people around them, their partners, their children. And you see, that is how we perpetuate, unfortunately, the pain, the wounding, and it becomes complex and difficult to untangle. However, it's still not impossible. What I feel we need to focus on is doing our own healing so that the lenses through which we view the world can really be fresh and clean, and we can hand those over to the next generation. Wouldn't that create a better world? Maybe it was a great idea to share this with you. This is something a friend wrote, and boy, it just struck a chord with me. What causes you to be trapped is what we call personal importance. In itself, there's nothing wrong with that. We are all important. But we may get a little bit derailed by feeling that everything is about us. It's not. Let's say somebody cuts in front of you in traffic. That person did not, I promise you, sit the morning and say, this person, I'm going to cut in front of them in traffic. It's not about you. They were going to cut in front of anybody. That's a wonderful sense of relief once you realize that. But it means it's not all your fault. Wonderful. I want that. Personal importance, or taking things personally, is the maximum expression of selfishness because we make the assumption that everything is about me. And I can say this from a more gentle perspective, that we have been made to feel guilty about everything. That's why we feel so personally responsible and so in the center of everything. And yet, once we sort of wiggle loose from that incredibly tight bond of it's all my fault, therefore it's all about me, therefore everything is about me, therefore everything that goes wrong is my fault, it's terrible to be living like that. This mental process, this thinkology process, is exactly aimed at setting you free. Wouldn't it be great relief to know that you can let it slide because it's not you, it's in them, it's in their patterning, their mindset, what is well known in the book called The Four Agreements as their domestication, meaning how they were brought up. And yeah, set yourself free. This is a lovely place to be when you're no longer hooked into people's, let's say somebody ignores you. It's not about you. They don't have the skill to communicate better. Set yourself free. It's wonderful. And also reflect on your own patterning. Look at where your patterning is asking you to make some freeing changes for other people. Okay, let's do some practical experiencing of this. So we must remember that not everything, literally not everything, but if we are in a relationship with a person, either a colleague, a partner, and even a child, we can learn so much from their behavior. So I'm going to use a personal relationship experience as an example. So let's assume you are in relationship with a person who appears to you to be extremely self-focused, extremely self-centered. And you know the modern catchword is narcissistic, which I am very cautious in using because we need to understand not everybody who is self-driven and self-focused is a narcissist. There's other things that they could be too. They could be wonderful lessons and wonderful examples, for example. So let's assume I'm in a relationship with that kind of person. So the mental process, the thinkology of it will sound something like this in your mind. Wow, okay, so I see this behavior. I notice that this person is extremely self-focused. Have I seen this before from this person? Yeah, okay, they do this pretty much all the time. Did I do anything to evoke this? Probably not. They would be like this with any partner. I always play the little mental game. If I was replaced by a little green Martian, would the person still be doing that? And that is just a wonderful tool to help you see that it's not about you. So then the next thing is, do I have the option to change my reaction? So most people, for example, will beg for attention or will demand attention or will do something to invoke a reaction from the other person. And the answer for ourselves is always, yes, I have a choice. I always have a choice. That moment before trigger and shoot is a pause. That's where we have the time to think. And we can mentally stretch that for as long as we want to. So don't be afraid of that. So in the example I'm using of a self-focused, self-centered person, the message or lesson for me can be, oh, where am I not being self-focused enough? Where am I ignoring myself? Where am I letting myself down? Where am I not available to myself? I hope that makes sense to you. You are very welcome to email me at hello@thinkology.co.za. You can also WhatsApp me on 08245339997. Leave a question in the comments below. I'll be more than happy to answer there if you don't mind being out in the open about the question. Also remember to like, share, subscribe. The more likes we get, the more the chances are that other people can see this video and we can really help affect the people's lives for the better. So I hope that the example helps you. I hope that you can start seeing the mirror of people's behavior and that it will in time be your best friend and your biggest partner in your personal growth. And I can say this sincerely from the very bottom of my heart. This process has been instrumental in my own personal growth and development. And I wish the same for you. So typically with human behavior, we don't get it right the first time. We stumble and we fall, we backtrack, we stop trying, we forget, and then we may hopefully get back on the horse again. So my wish for you is to remember to practice this questioning, to practice this thinkology process in your own mind. Breathe, pause, practice, learn. Remember, repetition is your strongest tool for your brain. It is, I dare say, the only tool that gets us where we need to get. That's how we learn to ride a bike. That's how we learn to speak. That's how we learn to drive. That's how we learn to speak, is through repetition. So remember that repetition can write any idea in your mind with indelible ink, so to speak. No other programming tool has as much power as repetition in your mind. So thank you very much for sharing this video with me. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being on the thinkology wagon with me. Please feel free to reach out. Please feel free to share this video with somebody you think might benefit from this, that might bring a lot of relief on the inside. You know, our inner landscape is a very important place, and it's most often neglected, ignored, and minimized. And it's actually where we live, so it's kind of sad. But feel free to share. Feel free to add to your Facebook page, to your Instagram. You can even use Twitter for that. I don't mind. Please feel free. And I also invite you guys to get in touch with me. All my detail is here. You're welcome to reach out in any way that you feel comfortable with. Thank you once again for your time. I hope this was fun and interesting. Have an absolutely fantastic day.